From the breathometer from hell to the icon that never really got a chance, here are the worst investments the Sharks have ever made. Starting with the infamous breathometer, the portable device promised to measure blood alcohol levels and tell you when it's time to call a cab. All 5 Sharks jumped at the chance to invest in Charles Michael Yim's ingenious device, but in all fairness, he did give them a glass of wine to ease them up before his pitch. Either way, he secured the bag really quickly. But things turned sour for Breathometer soon after the deal was made on the show. They had trouble keeping up with the orders. Like, it took them 6 months to deliver their post-show orders. The worst part was that it turned out the device didn't work at all as advertised. Imagine thinking you're good to drive, getting pulled over by the cops, and then failing the field sobriety test, all because the breathometer gave you a false negative. Word got out and the Federal Trade Commission stepped in, and after their investigation, they ordered Breathometer to make full refunds to its customers and take the product off the market. Mark Cuban, who invested in the company, called it the worst execution in the history of Shark Tank. Yikes, that's a bold statement, Mark. But maybe he's right. He dished it all on the Full Send podcast that right after Charles got the investment capital, he blew it all up with traveling expenses and fancy new things, all the while saying they were necessary purchases for networking. Eventually, he sent back the entire $1 million since he couldn't deliver on his promises, and got the company shut down by the government. But that was nothing compared to the drama that happened with Sweet Balls. The maker of those yummy little cake balls you used to find in convenience stores hit the Shark Tank and walked away with a $250K investment from Mark Cuban and Barbara Corcoran. Sweet, right? Well, not for long. The founders, James McDonald and Cole Egger, got into a messy feud shortly after the deal was made. McDonald accused Egger of developing a competing product behind his back, and things between them turned sour. Things escalated to the point that a restraining order had to be issued. Who knew the world of cake balls could be so dramatic? The real tragedy here is that the conflict happened just after their Shark Tank episode aired, so they couldn't really make use of the hype. The Sweet Balls website went offline, and the domain even redirected users to another website called Cake Balls, which just looked so shady that everyone would click away. After the lawsuit was settled, James McDonald, the original creator of the brand, won the website. But the business never recovered, and McDonald's running it more as a side gig for now. Looks like the world just gotta settle for regular cake. Look, it was a spin on a product you could get anyway. It was nice while it lasted. Speaking of, there was also Toy-Guru. Toy-Guru was the Netflix for toys that never quite made it. It was supposed to be a dream come true for parents. A subscription service that lets you rent different toys every month. No more cluttered playrooms, no more bored kids. It was a win-win. But unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Even though they managed to wrangle up $250,000 in funding from Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary, despite their best efforts, Toy-Guru just couldn't make it work. There were 2 major reasons for the business's downfall. First, sourcing prices were through the roof and they couldn't find a way to make it affordable. This is ironic because the whole business model was based on affordability. They had hoped their newfound investors would be able to help them out with contacts at big toy companies like Mattel, but nothing came of it. The second problem was shipping costs. Since the toys were all different sizes, shipping expenses would get out of hand quickly. But they were running a free shipping model, so they couldn't exactly just hike up the prices to cover the costs. They wanted to change the model, but their investors weren't on board. And to make matters worse, their Shark Tank appearance actually hurt them more than helped them. The sudden influx of business was too much for the startup to handle, and they weren't able to keep up with the demand. And the business shut down for good. But what happened with You Smell Soap had more to do with the shark than the product. Megan Cummins, the founder of a luxury soap brand called You Smell Soap, had her smile on, her soap samples lined up, and was ready to show the sharks what she's got. She made a deal with Robert Herjavec on the spot. $55,000 investment plus a $50,000 salary for 30% equity. It was unreal. So what went wrong? Well, everything. After their handshake deal on air, Megan couldn't get in touch with Robert for 6 months. Can you imagine? No texts, no emails, no smoke signals, nada. Eventually, Robert came back with a new offer. $50,000 for 50% of the company. Megan said thanks, but no thanks. We get it, Robert. Due diligence is important, but 6 months? All of this sounds like the plot of a soap opera, but it actually happened, and the company couldn't keep up with their post-show demands. After the failed deal with Robert, Megan found another investor who ended up buying the entire company. Unfortunately, shortly after the purchase, the business went belly up. Kind of like what happened with Bime. Have you ever struggled with spreading cold, hard butter on your toast? Well, Bime claimed to have the solution to all your buttery problems with its kitchen gadget that sprayed butter like it was perfume. Yep, you heard that right. A sprayer for your toast. Founder, Doug Foreman, had high hopes for his butter spraying contraption, but things went south quickly after a failed Kickstarter campaign left a bad taste in everyone's mouths. Apparently, the first version of the Bime didn't work, resulting in an angry mob of disappointed backers. As if that wasn't enough, Bime also had a bunch of Better Business Bureau complaints for undelivered and faulty products. Yikes! Despite appearing on Shark Tank and getting an offer from Lori Greiner, Bime couldn't seem to spread its wings and take off. The deal with Greiner fell through, leaving Bime without the funding it needed to improve the product. And just like that, Bime disappeared into the fridge, never to be seen again. Although its website is still up, the products have been sold out for years, leaving us with the bitter taste of disappointment and non-spreadable butter on our toast. But even that fail pales in comparison to what happened with Foot Fairy. The iPad app promised to save kids' feet from the horrors of ill-fitting shoes. Founded by Sylvie Shapiro and Nicole Brooks, this startup appeared on Shark Tank with a simple premise. The Foot Fairy app would measure children's feet using just an iPad camera and recommend the right size of shoes for them. Genius, right? Well, not quite. When they appeared on the show, the product was more so just an idea. Shapiro and Brooks didn't have any experience in app development, so they outsourced it to developers. Unfortunately, the app they came up with was as buggy as a mosquito-infested swamp. It failed to capture commission payments from shoe retailers, which meant the founders couldn't actually make any money off their idea. To make matters worse, their business model relied on commissions from Zappos and other online shoe retailers. In essence, Foot Fairy was just a middleman that would connect users with retailers, taking a cut of the sales. But since the app was malfunctioning, it couldn't fulfill its role and generate revenue. Mark Cuban saw potential in Foot Fairy and offered $100,000 for a 40% stake in the company, but the deal never closed, and Foot Fairy shut down within 6 months of its Shark Tank appearance. It's a shame, really, because we all know how hard it is to find shoes that fit just right. Speaking of things fitting just right, I have to talk about Hycon, the company that was supposed to revolutionize the world of firefighting. Hycon was a product that would allow firefighters to connect a hose to a fire hydrant in seconds. It would help firefighters get right to putting out the flames instead of spending minutes getting the water running. Jeff Stroop, the founder of Hycon, made his way onto the show hoping to score some sweet investor cash. And boy, did he get an offer. Mark Cuban offered him $1.25 million for the entire company and a 7% royalty. But as with most things in life, there was a catch. Cuban had some big plans for the product that involved licensing it out to other companies, essentially pushing Stroop out of the picture. Obviously, he wasn't thrilled with this idea and decided not to accept the new terms of the deal. Despite being granted a patent for his product, Hycon never made it to production and the company eventually shut down. Lesson learned. When you're dealing with a billionaire investor who's always looking to expand his portfolio, make sure you're on the same page before signing anything. So from the Hycon that never really got a chance to the breathometer from hell. That's all I've got today for the worst investments the Sharks ever made.